Nothing in this podcast or on our website should be construed as medical advice. Consult your healthcare provider for your individual nutritional and medical needs. The information presented is based on our research and is strictly that of the author and not necessarily those of any professional group or other individual.
Hi, I'm Sue Becker from Bread Beckers. Welcome to Sue's Healthy Minutes. I'm so excited you've joined me today, and I hope this episode encourages you and allows you to find the answers you have been praying for the health of you and your family. Today on Sue's Healthy Minutes, it is time for another encouraging It's the Bread story. My guest today is Shannon Thompson, and her story has certainly been a journey, and I am so excited for her to share with everyone listening today. Shannon, thank you so much for emailing me and now for joining me today. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Sue's Healthy Minutes.
Thank you, Sue. I just first of all want to say thank you for the opportunity to share on your podcast today. It's truly an honor for me.
Well, it's a blessing, I know, to everyone that hears when they hear all that you have to share. So why don't you start by telling us just a little about yourself, where you're from, and what your life is all about?
Sure. So I am a wife to a wonderful and supportive husband of 28 years. And a mother to two amazing young men, both which were married last year. And we are now expecting our first granddaughter. And we absolutely love both our daughter. We call them our daughters in love, not daughters in law.
Yes.
And so we're excited about our precious granddaughter on the way as well. I live in New Mexico, and I have lived here my entire 52 years of life.
That's amazing. Well, I was concerned that I might have to postpone our interview today because I am expecting my 19th grandchild to be born. She was due last Wednesday, but she's being stubborn. And so we will actually head down tomorrow to go to Savannah, Georgia to welcome little Isla into the world. It's my youngest daughter. And her
congratulations.
husband.
That's so exciting. 19. Wow.
Yes. And then we have our first great-grandchild coming this summer. So, it's exciting. It surely is. But so now you've been on quite the wellness journey for more than 20 years now. So what put you on this journey, and share a little bit about the different paths you took to find health, as well as what you learned along the way, what worked and didn't work?
Really, it started right before my first pregnancy. My dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He was 49 years old when he passed.
Oh my.
And yes, I found out that I was pregnant with our first son. So it was a difficult pregnancy, and losing my dad was very difficult. And I just, pancreatic cancer at the age of 49 was just really hard to swallow. So, I just really started looking into really wanting to protect my family and our health, especially having a new baby and, growing our family.
Yeah.
So I looked into, just what the best things to feed my children, to feed my husband, myself, to nourish our bodies. And this was, 20 plus years ago, closer to 30. And so, I did what I could. I cooked as healthy as I could. But quite honestly, I really wished I would have known about the bread when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
There would have been a lot of benefits for me, not only for me, but for my unborn child.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I didn't find out about the bread until right before I got pregnant with my sixth child. So I'm like, wow, how did I miss this? But I wish I'd done it sooner. But here we are. God brought us to this place. So, okay, keep going with how you found the paths.
Well, after my second pregnancy, I had a harder time losing weight. So the weight gain and then the bloating, and you just notice a little bit of a decline in your gut health.
Right.
So I started with probiotics, and then I started reading, started doing all the diets, the cleanse, every kind of cleanse you could think of. and it just never worked. And so, fast forward quite a few years later, my boys were both in high school, and I decided I needed to do something. It just, the bloating, the achy joints. I just felt like, I was in my early 40s and I was too young to be feeling that way.
Right.
So I started reading every book you could think of. I did the Keto Essentials, Gluten-Free Bible, the Powerful Paleo Superfoods, the Paleo Approach. And that's the one that I finally really landed on. And I stuck to it. This was, I think, back in 2017. And I stuck to it and I felt fantastic. I got off of sugar. I got off all grain. I got off all dairy, caffeine. I don't know how I did it, but I did.
You were determined. Something tells me you're a pretty determined lady.
Yes. And so that continued for about 8 months, and I dropped about 20 pounds. I felt amazing. The inflammation had gone away. I had great energy levels, and I had like no brain fog, and I just felt great. I had energy like I was 20 years younger. But as good as I felt, I knew that it wasn't sustainable because the diet is so restrictive. And of course, all it took was one bite of pizza and actually a slice of pizza and a cookie.
Yeah, draws you right back in, doesn't it?
Yes. So, it just had the dry skin, achy joints, low energy, brain fog, the bloating, it all came back. And I just couldn't see me starting all over again. And it's really hard because here I am on this diet and then I'm having to cook a different diet for my family.
Right. Yeah. Did the weight come back as well?
Oh, yes, it sure did.
Yeah. So you knew from your studies that the processed carbs you were now eating were the cause of these problems. And there had to be a better way, but you didn't have an answer.
I didn't have an answer.
So you kept searching, right? So how in the world did you discover real bread and bread bakers and the concept of milling your grain to make all those wonderful carbs?
Well, actually, how that happened was because I'm always Googling or, on YouTube, something researching. And I wanted to start because I've had a home bakery since 2021 and I've been baking for years. I love to bake. I make custom cookies and, I've just loved gifting my family with baked goods. So I wanted to start making bread and I wanted to actually start making the sourdough bread. And so when I got on YouTube, I started looking for bread recipes and you happened to be there.
Shocker.
Yes. And so I was like, well, what is this? Because I didn't Google it or I didn't put it in the search bar, but it showed up. So I clicked on it on one of the podcasts and I started listening and I could not believe what I was hearing. And I thought, I knew it. I knew it.
Yes.
Because I love grain. I love bread. And when you linked the bread of life to Jesus, I was all in. I said, this is it. Yes. So I just started listening more and I did some research and I started to listen to, podcast after podcast of yours. And I was just, she's onto something. And I feel like this is truth, Yeah. So I went out and bought my mill and I ordered grain and I started making bread and I fell in love with it and I haven't looked back since.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But now you had a pretty stressful life when you first started, right? Tell us about that.
So, when I first started with the bakery and we were excited about our bakery. I was actually looking to at some point start my own brick and mortar. But in 2022, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and that was devastating for us. She is not married. She's single and she was helping with raising our two nephews. So when she was diagnosed, she was pretty sick. So we brought her into our home to live with us for a few months, and we cared for her. And she has 2 sons, and her other son is not married. So I'm her only daughter. So the Lord just put it on my heart that, I needed to be there for her.
Yeah.
So we kind of put things on hold, and fast forward, she's still with us. Praise God. She's still struggling with health issues, but she's a fighter.
Yeah.
And as much as I would love to give this to my mother-in-law, I'm hoping that at some point we can. It's just she's so complicated that her doctors won't allow it. Yeah. And, we're praying that at some point she will. But my husband has started it, and he has done phenomenally well. He has tons more energy. He is on blood pressure medication as well as cholesterol medication. But we are hoping that with the continual consumption of the bread regularly, that will change.
Yeah. Well, I'm believing, and I'm going to look forward to hearing another It's the Bread story. So, but when you first started, you were determined, and so what made you so committed even then, with the stress and the demands on your life, and how did you incorporate it into your hectic life? And I know you said even when you didn't make it all the time, when you did make it, you noticed that you felt better and that you had more energy.
Yes. As a matter of fact, so I first started making it, and, I wasn't great at it, but it didn't take long. It's not a hard process. It's you have to commit to it.
Right.
And, even if it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, if you just make that commitment, and that's what I did. And, I just started noticing. So we were eating it, first of all, maybe a couple times a week, and I wasn't noticing a whole lot. Then I thought, if I'm going to commit to this and really see the changes, I need to be a little more committed. So we started eating. I told my husband, okay, we're going to eat this like a prescription.
I loved that. When you wrote that to me, you're like, yeah, I thought that is so funny.
Yes, because, I said, so the doctor, in order to get well, he has you on this prescription. Well, in order to feed our body properly, we need to eat it like a prescription. So we eat 2 slices in the morning with breakfast. Sometimes we'll have tortillas in the evening and for lunch, but we make sure that we get 2 to 3 servings a day. And when we started doing that, I am currently going through perimenopause. So the brain fog is
real.
It is real. It is. The joint pain is something else. And just the achiness, the headaches. I have suffered with migraines for many, many years. And really, they would occur at least once a week for the last 15 years.
Oh, my goodness.
When I started eating real bread consistently, I have not had a migraine since.
That's amazing. And you kind of went really all in consistently, like you said, October of last year, 2024.
Yes.
Right. So what's been maybe 7 months?
Mm-hmm. That's when I actually left my full-time job to pursue my home bakery full-time and to care for my mother-in-law. And so I make it every day. I make it, if not every day, every other day. I'm baking bread or some form of bread. I make it for my family, but it has been amazing for my health. The joint pain has subsided quite a bit. The biggest praise report is, no migraines.
No migraines, because those are debilitating. Yeah.
Yes. The brain fog has gotten a lot better. My youngest son is like, Mom, I can't believe it. I don't have to finish your sentences for you anymore.
That's great when others notice, isn't it?
Yes. And my youngest son also, I told him, okay, we need to, because he works out quite a bit. He's a fitness buff, and both he and his wife. And so he does have a couple of warts on his hands. And so he has a couple of stubborn ones, but one of them did fall off.
Oh, that's amazing. You didn't tell me your wart story. That's great.
Yes. So, and I was, so excited. He recently moved back from Colorado, from finishing school. And so I told him, we've got to get you on this bread. I really need to see if this works. And it's working.
It's working.
It's working, and it is such a blessing. And I absolutely love the bread. And I'm just, I'm super excited to continue baking with it, learning how to convert my recipes, my cookie recipes, because I created a lot of my own recipes for my bakery, but I am learning to convert them with the fresh milled flour. And
that's amazing. Yeah. And that's really how I started too. I mean, I had been baking since I was young, like 7 years old. I took a, Girl Scout cooking class, and I baked and I made bread and I made everything from scratch for my family. And so that's kind of what I did. I just started converting my own recipes. I was familiar with them. I knew what they were, going to look like, what the dough would feel like. So that was what was helpful for me. And so oftentimes I see people saying, I want a recipe for this grain or spelt or einkorn, or I need a recipe for cookies. And I'm like, just get your cookie recipe out, and just, use the freshly milled flour.
You have to work with it. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I did notice that it's a little, fresh milled flour is just a little more thirsty.
Yes.
And just to add a little more liquid.
Yeah, I kind of learned that too. And I just feel like you'll get used to it. But I do know that there are some people that haven't baked all their life. And so it is a learning curve. And I just appreciate so much people like you that are coming alongside others and helping them. And you're now being called to that, right?
Yes, I have. I've actually been asked by a few people. And I have this lady at church. She's pretty persistent about it. But she said, I really feel the Lord's calling you to teach people, to educate people here in New Mexico. There is nothing like that here in our state. And people need to hear this.
Yeah.
So I'm praying about it. I think I had put that in my email to you. I don't know in what capacity and how the Lord's going to do that. But, I'm just taking it day by day.
Yep. In his time, he will open the door.
Yes.
That's how Bread Becker started many years ago. I had 4 people say, will you teach me how to make bread? And I was like, okay. I so appreciate your story, Shannon, because people tell me all the time, and they blame carbohydrates and bread on brain fog and joint pain and low energy and even migraines. I've heard people say, oh no, if I eat gluten in particular, they'll say that I'll get a migraine. So it is so refreshing to hear you confirm that it's not wheat, it's not bread, it is the commercially processed, low fiber, high sugar, white flour junk that's in the store that is causing the bloating, the brain fog, the low energy, the joint pain. And that when we start eating the real carbohydrates that God made, the way he made them, those issues get resolved. I loved it. You also shared with me that you're 52 years old and that you recently jumped a fence to rescue one of your hens like you were 15 years younger. I love that.
Yes, I couldn't believe it. So we live on a half acre in the country, and my shepherd dog came running to the back door, letting me know that one of my hens was over the fence, and this is a 6-foot fence. Well, we have a gate that has a code on it. So I called my husband and said, I need the code so that I can get my hen. Well, he gave me the code, but it wouldn't work. So what am I going to do? I need to get my hen. So I just said, okay, you're going to just jump the fence. I climbed that fence so easily. I jumped over, I grabbed her. I didn't even have to chase her down. I just picked her up, put her over the fence, and I crawled right back over. Like, no big deal. And
Oh my goodness.
when it happened, I thought, Lord, wow, I feel amazing.
Yes.
It was wonderful. And I felt young. I felt strong.
Yes.
And it's something that I hadn't had in so long.
And when you don't have it and then you gain it back, or you had it, you lose it, and then you gain it back, it's very noticeable.
Very noticeable. And when you were talking about, the processed foods and the sugars, high sugar and processed flour, I can immediately feel the effects after eating something like that.
Yes.
You feel tired, you feel sluggish. For me, it's almost instantaneous. My stomach, I can just feel pains in my stomach and bloating. And within an hour, my joints are aching.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I really, I kind of had to test it. And so I went back to eating it after eating, fresh milled flour for a while. And I got back on just the regular flour, eating regularly the way I used to for about a week. And sure enough, it all came back.
It all came back. A similar thing happened to me when we first started, because I homeschooled the kids. So we were home most of the time, and we just ate, and we ate this bread every meal, 1 and 2 and sometimes 3 servings, at every meal. So I was eating a lot of bread, and I'll never forget, I had chronic sinus congestion before bread. Well, that all cleared up. Like you, I didn't have the migraines weekly, but I always seemed to just have a heaviness in my, I would call it a headache, but it was just kind of always there. And all that went away. And we went to a party at someone's house, and I did great. I just didn't eat any of the junky bread. But right at the end, I was like, oh man, I just really want a brownie, So I remember I ran up, got a brownie, and we left. And on the way home, this sinus drip down my throat. I felt icky and just kind of, I don't know, just kind of shaky, actually. And at first I was like, Lord, am I not strong enough that I can handle just a little bit of something bad? But you know what God kind of showed me through all that was that's the way you used to live. So you didn't notice when you ate this, that, or the other, that's what was making you always had sinus congestion. You always felt icky. You always had a headache. So I'm with you. It's that we're strong. Our bodies are strong. And now we notice, and our bodies notice when we get into something that is really not giving, good for us. So that's interesting that you said the same thing, that you noticed very quickly. So, and I really do. I just so appreciate you sharing, because I hate that people say, oh, I can't eat grains. They cause me joint pain or bloating or brain fog.
Well, and I hear it all the time. I hear that so often. As a matter of fact, I can share with you this lady. I went to purchase my local honey for the bread because I use local raw honey. And I stepped into the store, and there was this lady buying some honey. She was checking out, and she was getting something else. So the owner said, okay, are you ready? I gave her my order, and I told her I use this for my bread. She says, oh, you do? And lady next to me, she said, you make bread with it? And I said, yes, I make freshly milled flour bread. And she said, oh, I can't eat bread. And I asked her, I said, you can't? She said, oh, I can't have grain. She said, I'm allergic. I said, are you allergic or are you sensitive? And she said, I think I'm sensitive. I said, let me make you some bread. So I made her a small loaf. I met her about a week later. She sent me a message. She said, I cannot believe it. She said, I ate the bread and I felt wonderful and it's delicious. And so she orders it now.
Isn't that amazing? Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. That is just amazing. And I hate it that so many people think they can't eat it and they're actually not getting better, even though they're restricting it. And that's what I find so many people sharing that think they have to be gluten-free or grain-free when they discover the bread. I always tell those that ask, not only can they tolerate it? It's not just that they tolerate it, they get well. It's healing. They love it. They feel the best they've felt in a long time. So I love it that you shared bread with her.
And it sustains you.
Yes.
It's, oh my goodness. I hear you talk about your kids, your story about your kids, how, that they don't look for snacks.
Right.
They're not in the pantry or the refrigerator looking for snacks. And, we're the same way. There's a lot of times, as long as I have the bread, I'll have 2 meals a day.
Yeah.
And I feel perfectly fine and sustained.
That's what we are finding too. So now you mentioned your own positive health benefits, and now you've mentioned your son. One of his warts are gone away, and your husband. We're going to believe that he's going to see a difference in his cholesterol and his blood pressure.
Yes.
And I really love your comment that you said y'all decided to eat this bread like a prescription. I kind of tease sometimes because people will always ask me, like, how much bread do I need to eat? What I had one man even say, what's the recommended daily dosage? And I kind of laughed because I'm like, we are so dosage and medicine minded. But when you said that, I like that,
But people understand that.
Yes.
They really do.
Yeah.
And I was in the medical field for years. I was actually going to nursing school, but God had other plans for me. So I still have a lot of knowledge in the medical field. And it's just, when you say prescription, it's so relatable to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, and that's what I tell my mom. I said, Mom, you really have to eat this like a prescription. You're dedicated to whatever your doctor gave you. Well, this is what the Lord has given you. So I need you to eat it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so like I said, I've kind of almost gotten a little frustrated going, why are we so dosage minded? But now I'm rethinking this whole thing because Hippocrates said, let food be our medicine and medicine be our food. Mm-hmm. But you're right. And when you said that, a doctor gives you a prescription and you need to, according to them, take that prescription to get well. So God has given us a prescription. He's given us a food to bring health. And so we need to take it, and we need to take it 3 times a day and,
absolutely,
as much as possible. So I'm looking forward now to hearing your husband's testimony. I'm going to believe that we're going to see a good report there as y'all continue with this God-given prescription of real bread. So anything else you would like to share before we close? Are there any final words of encouragement that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
I think sometimes we can feel intimidated as we get older, trying new things. Especially here in New Mexico, I noticed we're so stuck on traditions. But we can make new traditions, and we can turn those old traditions into something beautiful with something new.
Yes.
And I just think, you're never too old to start something. And it may sound a little cliche, but to me, it's true. And when God puts something on your heart, He will walk you to it, and He'll walk you through it. You just need to trust Him.
I love that.
And the scripture that I would like to just leave with is Proverbs 3:5-6. And this is out of the New Living Translation. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take. And He has shown me through His grace, and I am so thankful that I found your podcast. I'm so thankful for your obedience and to the call that He has called you to. And I am a huge fan, and I'm just so thankful for you.
Well, I am so thankful for you sharing. And I think when you shared that about the paths, He will lead us on the paths we will take. And what is so powerful about your story is that you sought a lot of paths and you went on them, and they worked a little and did this a little, but they weren't sustainable. And when you found the path that God had for you, it's brought healing and freedom and joy and now a desire to share it with the others. I just think that's so powerful. So I thank you for that.
One last thing. I do have my best friend. She's like my sister. she's milling her own flour. We're both so excited about this. She has jumped on board and she is doing this for her and her family, and she's spreading the word at work, and so it's spreading. So what you've done is just continuing to spread, and it's such a fun and wonderful thing. So
that is amazing. I call my ministry sometimes Spread the Bread. So
yes,
you can spread it with butter, jam, and jelly,
yes.
but just spread it.
Yes. Absolutely. We love it all.
Yes. Well, thank you. I know you're busy. You have a busy life. We all do. But I just thank you so much for sharing your journey with me and now all who will listen and hear this testimony. I just know it's going to bring great encouragement to those who have tried other pathways to health and failed, or perhaps have not seen the health changes they were looking for. And that can bring discouragement. So I believe your testimony is encouraging and it brings hope. And just thank you again for taking the time to join me here on Sue's Healthy Minutes. And I just thank everyone for listening. And until next time, this is Sue Becker from Bread Beckers with Sue's Healthy Minutes.
Sue's Healthy Minutes podcast has been a presentation by the Bread Beckers Incorporated, located in Woodstock, Georgia. For more information, store hours, and learning opportunities, visit breadbeckers.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Share this with 2 friends who would benefit from this information, and be sure to join us again next week for more of Sue's Healthy Minutes.